This is the second half of the video on professional responsibility. So the first half we talked about mostly primary sources, how to go about finding the state ethical rules. We talked about the model ABA rules. We talked about finding state court decisions, interpreting state rules. Now we're going to move on to ethics opinions, disciplinary proceedings, and secondary source material. So the first thing I want to talk about are ethics opinions, and we're going to talk about the ABA and the state opinions. ABA and the bars of all the 50 states publish ethic opinions in response to requests for advice, usually from lawyers. If we look at that big 1996 guide, you'll see that sometimes there are other categories of people who can ask for advice, such as judges. Usually ethical opinions are advisory, but in some states, some decisions are binding. So again, that's why I gave you that web page. They can be cited to show how a bar has interpreted a specific ethical rule. So for our purposes, we're always going to want to look for the state bar decisions and possibly the ABA ethics opinions as well, to give us some information about how rules have been interpreted. So how can we go about finding state legal ethics opinions? So there's a couple of sources I've given you here. The ABA Center for Professional Responsibility, which we've looked at, has links. I've given you the Trail on Westlaw Classic. Again, the best way I think is to go in by topical practice area. On Westlaw Next, you can go in by administrative decisions and pick legal and judicial ethics. On Lexis, you can go in by area of law. The problem on Westlaw and Lexis is that they don't cover all the states. Okay. I'm mentioning again that ABA BNA Lawyer's Manual, and I really like it for as a secondary source material and to locate legal ethics opinions, because it includes a subject index. So I'm going to show you that site. And the final source I mentioned is a reporter that's available on Lexis.com or Lexis Advanced. Okay, so I'm at the Boston College Law Library website, and I'm going to look at the Law Library database list. And this is an alphabetical list, and we're looking for the BNA products. So the ABA BNA Lawyer's Manual is a BNA product. We could go in by subject area, but I'm going to actually look at the alphabetical list because it's the first one, ABA BNA Lawyer's Manual. And I like to look at it on this source because I think visually it's easier to see all of the helpful aids like the indexes we were talking about. So it has ethics opinions, ethics rules available here, including, I mentioned before, that state variations. That link is here. We're going to talk about the practice guides a little bit later, but what we're looking at now is the index to the cases that have to do with state ethics opinions. Okay, so we're going to look at the index by jurisdiction, and I'm going to use Massachusetts again as our example. And we'll use as our example candor towards the tribunal, which is the rule we looked at before. And we can see here that it lists a couple of different mass ethics opinions that have to do with the topic. Just look at the first one. It gives you a summary of the opinion so that you can see if it's something you want to look at. Okay, so those are some different sources for state legal ethics opinions. So Lexis and Westlaw, but those databases might not be great for your state. You can look at the ethics opinions that are available freely online by the state, and you can find them by looking at the links available on the ABA website. Or you can use the secondary source I just showed you, the ABA BNA Lawyer's Manual. So how would we go about finding Massachusetts legal ethics opinions? So this would be that first option, finding the ethics opinions by looking at the state websites. And in Massachusetts, there's two different bar associations that issue ethics opinions, the Mass Bar and the Boston Bar. And this is kind of important to keep in mind because depending on what state you're in, there might be multiple bar associations that you have to look at. Massachusetts isn't the only one that has a format like this. Like in California, there's several bar associations. So let's talk a little bit about ABA ethics opinions and where to go about finding them. So ABA formal ethics opinions have to do with more general circumstances. So if the ABA thinks it has to address something with lawyers and judges and social media, it might issue a formal ethics opinion. ABA informal ethics opinions have to do with a set of specific facts, so it has to be specific to a factual situation that's actually happening. And I've given you the databases. On Westlaw Classic, this is the database identifier, or you can go in by topic area. On Westlaw Next, it's really easy because you can type in the GoBar ABA ethics opinions. On Lexis.com, it's easiest to go in by topic area. And the ABA ethics opinions haven't moved over yet to Lexis Advanced, so keep that in mind for your searching. And the same way you would go about finding the formal, you can find the informal ethics opinions. They're also available in print. And the reason that we would look at these is your state may have not clarified an issue and the ABA may have, so it could be helpful to look at the ABA ethics opinions. So how would we go about finding individual disciplinary decisions? So this is if a client complains about something an attorney does. And this will go before, it sort of depends on the state, it's a little bit different. For example, in Massachusetts, they go before the Board of Bar Overseers, and those are appealable to the SJC. So you would find BBO disciplinary proceedings, and you might also find SJC decisions on point. In Massachusetts, we can go to the BBO website. We'll look at that in a minute. There's also a print source called the Massachusetts Attorney Discipline Reports, and as I mentioned, SJC decisions. To know what's going on in a particular state, you would have to find out what the process is for disciplinary proceedings, and you can look again at the ABA website and look at the directory of state lawyer disciplinary agencies, and I've given you the link there to the PDF. So let's just take a quick look at the Board of Bar Overseers website. Okay, so this is the Board of Bar Overseers, the Office of the Bar Council, and the list of disciplinary decisions. You can see it's by year. We also have a separate link to dismissals, and then we have disciplinary decisions by the name of the attorney. So let's just take a quick look at one of these. So you can see that it gives you a summary of the facts of what happened, and then the vote of whether to discipline the attorney and what happened exactly with this case. They're usually like this, pretty short. Okay, so that's how we would go about finding disciplinary decisions, and usually we're looking for something by a particular attorney, but we could also roughly search by subject area. Again, you're not going to have a lot of discussion, so usually we're searching by attorney here. There are a couple of disciplinary decision databases on Westlaw, and I've given you how to find them on Westlaw Next and Westlaw Classic. So if you were looking by topic, this might be a better way to find disciplinary decisions. But again, it doesn't include all the disciplinary decisions, so you have to keep in mind that it might be a limited database for your state. So the final area I want to mention is secondary sources. I showed you briefly the ABA BNA Lawyer's Manual, and I find this to be a really good source, and I'm going to take you out and look at it one more time so that we can look at how they've grouped materials by practice areas, because I think it's really helpful. The restatement of the law governing lawyers, that's available in print, Westlaw, Lexis, and Hein Online. I gave you another treatise by Hazard and Hodes, The Law of Lawyering, which is a good treatise. There's a legal ethics research guide that can also be helpful when you're looking beyond what I've told you in the area of legal ethics if you need to research something deeper that I didn't cover. And we always want to remember when we're researching state issues, we want to look at those state materials that are available as well. So this is an example here in Massachusetts, Ethical Lawyering in Massachusetts, published by the Massachusetts Continuing Legal Education publisher. Okay, so let's just take a quick look at one of these secondary sources, the one that I keep telling you I like, the ABA-BNA Lawyer's Manual. So again, I'm going to use this source from our databases page because I like the way the content's arranged better. This source is also available on Lexis.com, Westlaw Classic, and in print, but it's not available yet on Next or Advanced, so keep that in mind. So what I really want to talk about now in terms of secondary sources are these practice guides, and there's an index to the practice guides as well as a list of them by topic. So let's take a quick look at the index and say we were interested in candor toward the tribunal, which is the issue we've been researching all along. You can see it kind of breaks it down into disclosure, evidence, but let's look at in general. And the reason I find these guides so helpful is it tells you which rule covers it, what are the subtopics underneath of it, gives you the background of the rule, amendments to the rule and what got changed. And then it talks about how the state rules are different. So California has not adopted the model rule, blah, blah, blah. Colorado retains the adjective material. It tells you how the state would be different. And then it gives you, by subtopic, for example, what's the lawyer's role? And here are the rules that cover that. In addition to that, it's giving you some case law citations to help you understand the rule a little bit better. So cases that talk about the lawyer's role in terms of duty of candor to the court. And there's also, if we scroll down, depending on which section we're in, we may see ABA opinions that are mentioned, and we might see state ethical opinions mentioned. So this is a secondary source. It talks about the law, helps us understand the law, and also gives us some leads to primary source material. Okay, so this discussion of secondary sources ends this slideshow on professional responsibility research. And if you have any questions, you can post to the discussion board and we can go over it in class.